people who are okay, so we're making this a debate for people just joining us up. Welcome to our stream here. And we're talking about the Star Citizen economy. And we're talking about two different sides. We're talking about one side that agrees that it should be like a human-led economy. And the other side is that it should be like an NPC AI-led economy. And the game is currently in the state where Chris is designed. I mean, he's the creator. It's the way it's going to be, but I think what's important is our voice. And Chris has designed it right now to be a 90-10 split. And I see 90-10 everywhere. And I see 90-10, 90-10, 90-10, 90-10. And the thing is I don't know where the 90-10 came from. The theory is that Chris wants 90% of the controlled market, the market to be controlled by NPC or AI, and 10% by human. And then there's others that will actually debate this fact and say, the 90-10 split has nothing to do with the economy being, the control. It has more to do with the amount of actual NPC characters in the game versus the human population. So what do you think about that, Michael? Like, what do you are kind of in line with when it comes to that?
I don't think it should be all one way or all the other. I mean, I don't want necessarily, for example, a lot of games, particularly like the base items, if you go in, are just price fixed, right? There's no variation. And I think what they're trying to do is not just try and plug in, for example, an algorithm for, well, we want the price to kind of be this, and so we're just going to, only allow them to buy and sell and trade in this range. They're trying to actually model behaviors of the NPC. So, and I think that does kind of help to have that influence in there. It's going to make it feel like a larger market. I mean, it's going to be more difficult to manipulate, but that's actually more realistic, especially when you're dealing with billions and billions of people for just a handful of people to go in and be able to, buy all of some commodity or something like that, or even as a guild, 100 or 1,000 people or something like that.
What
I should still be able to do it.
What would you say to that, Matt? What would you say to that?
Well, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying that that it should be NPC led so that like a few people can't do that, or are you saying that doesn't happen like in IRL? Like, what exactly were you getting at?
I'm not exactly sure.
Well, I'll respond to both, sort of, I guess. Like,
yeah,
I would say first of all, like the thing of like a few people, like a few elites buying a lot of one commodity to change the price of it. And I don't want like everyone, out there to lose their minds, but that happens, like that's happening right now. That happens.
It happens in real, right? It happens in the real world, right?
And it does cause chaos in ways. And
wait, let me break it down. Let me break it down a little different. Hold on, wait, one moment. Do you think that the very reason that Matt said what he said is because when people are looking at the game's economies, they log in and they're like, I live in this real world with this fucking market the way that it is. I just want to play a game and I don't want to have to worry about like any of that shit. I don't want to do that. Is that part of it though, Michael? Is that part of it?
I suppose that might be an element of it,
Right, right.
Like $400 for a pair of glasses that cost them like $10 to make or something.
Right, because like because
I'll totally concede that there are people in the real world that, or at least corporations, that do that kind of thing and corner markets and all that. So I suppose it's realistic for there to be a few elites there.
But do you think it's probabilistically small that people come on to Star Citizen and don't want to have to deal with like people in the market? Do you think that's small or large? Do you think the percentage of people logging into Star Citizen are like wanting a human-led economy? Like when it comes down to what do you think's like the more dominant voice besides Chris? We know Chris has designed it this way, and I have a few things I'm going to talk about in that respect, because I believe that the 90-10 is a safeguard because the game's just starting out. And I think what he's going to end up doing is he's going to take that split and he's going to make it more, as more people play the game, the split's going to go more towards, you know, like the center where like humans can actually like do more with the market. Because you're going to find that I think a lot of people do come to this game because they like the numbers, because they like the trading, because they want the entrepreneurship. I mean, I think I saw that in Eve, especially. That was my background with economies. So like when I start talking about economies, people don't just shut up and they're like, okay, dude, I don't want to listen to you anymore. Because like I get into the Eve economy and how involved that was, because there was like trade wars that were happening that were causing the wars. I thought that was a really interesting dynamic within a game, because it was kind of like it was like mimicking realistic things that happen in the real world, with the real market, with real countries manipulating their ends and their resources so that they could do the same things that we could do in the game. And I actually like that gameplay. Maybe I'm twisted, maybe I'm kind of a twisted person, but like I like that gameplay where like I can get in and I can like manipulate pricing and like go to an area that there isn't an item and say, oh God, I love this, that this is like a perfect market for me. I'm gonna put my item in there, I'm gonna jack it up, and that's it, right? That jack it up part, I think, is what people are scared of. They're like, don't do that because you're going to cause chaos and there's going to be only one of you and he's going to be like the monster monopoly within the game, and he's gonna tell me that I have to spend like $1 bajillion on one single fucking bullet. God damn you, you ruined my game. Like I feel like like there's that.
On that note, like kind of, I want to jump in and finish like what I was saying originally.
Go ahead.
There's this idea of like, well, there'll be chaos created, but what I want to point out is that yes, I mentioned that does happen in our real world, but what I would say is your average person does not deal with that chaos really in any measurable way. Like there's stuff happening right now that affects people who are on the big end that does not affect me. So like if someone buys a ton of a commodity and like whenever that price raises, it doesn't raise like quadruple, you know, it usually raises by a fraction. But raising a fraction can destroy a corporation. Whereas like an individual person, like if the price of a bullet goes up 10%, that's not going to affect you the way it affects someone who buys, you know, a gazillion bullets constantly because they're in a war. And so the thing is, I think that the economy, as the baseline, it will be the driving force for any other type of gameplay, the same way it is in the real world. Like you said, you know, there's wars over your economics, or there's conflict over that, or things like that. And
well, war in itself is an economy.
Well, that's
you know, like right.
And what I was saying is, if you don't have that, the entire world, I think, is going to break down in terms of, you know, your immersion and your realism. Because, you know, if you go, well, these two factions are fighting, it's like, why? Well, because there's nothing else to do. Like, you know, and that's not why people fight. They fight over a resource.
Right. That's why we have lines on that's why there's lines all over the land. Like when you look at a globe, that's why there's lines everywhere. That's why our country was formed. You know, like it's like lines. It's all lines and like types of thought that goes into the economy. Go ahead.
What I would hope is that anyone who's getting into this game wants it to be immersive. And what I say, if someone's like, well, I don't want it to be immersive, what I always say to that person is like, well, you don't want to play Star Citizen. Then
right. And maybe people feel like the way we play is a little too aggressive. Like maybe they think that. Go ahead.
I was gonna hit on the point of like, there's little things that he brings up that he worries about that affect immersion that are just as important to me or would be important to you. Like he mentioned, I never played World of Warcraft, but I know exactly what he's talking about. The person running back and forth from the bank to some economic node, back and forth, and that's
right.
A line of people, and it looks very unrealistic.
Well, they didn't craft the tools perfect in that game. Like the Moby Glass, the Moby Glass takes that out. Like this, you know, like right.
If you don't have to physically go from one node to another, or if the economy is set up as such that it's not like this is the only smith that's close enough to a bank.
Well, like Michael brings up the point of go ahead, Michael.
Just that it was also just that the rest of the city felt so empty. You know, right? It's supposed to be a city. There should be
There should be activity.
And also, when you see, you know, everybody has a dragon. It's not as cool to have a dragon.
Right. That's true too. Right.
They
made it available to everybody. Right. But like,
so
but
part of
okay.
it is to sort of inflate, I guess my ego that I'm actually this guy with his own ship, and there's all these there's these 10 NPC plebes or whatever that don't.
And wait till the ships go down in pricing when the game goes out, and the credits actually are reflective of like the actual amount that you would have paid for the ship. Like I always think that like the credits will eventually just like soak up to the point. What is it now? It's like what is it? 1,000 per? No, is it 10,000 per $1? Like if I were to look at the gift cards, I can't remember how they've got it configured, but I have it on a video. Like one actual American dollar equals
1,000.
is 1,000. Okay, thank you. Who's that?
Gross.
Who?
Gross. I'm
on
normally
one second.
a stoker in your chat.
Hold on 1 second. Who is it?
Gross. I'm normally a stoker in your chat.
I'm not picking up the last part.
I'm not getting the last part either, but hello, Groth. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Pleasure to have you here, man.
Groot.
I loved it. I actually was thinking that. I loved it. I was like, what is this voice that I've never heard before? Welcome, Groth. Thank you for joining us here on Voice. So let me kind of steer it this way then. Michael.
Yeah.
When it comes to like pricing of items, you're fine not having like the ability. Okay, let's talk about just basics. Let's talk about like basics right now. Are you okay with people putting buy and sell orders in the game? Like
Sure.
players. Okay, great. All right, so you're in favor of that. So you want people to have like kind of like a little bit more control over the goods that they basically are trading, correct?
Yeah.
You don't want like a system kind of like Elite is right now, where Elite Dangerous is, and I don't know if you're not familiar with it, basically you accept a mission from point A and you take the cargo that they automatically put in your ship, and then you fly to point B and then you sell it, and you have no other like economic interaction. You don't want that, correct?
No.
Oh, okay, good. No. Thank you. All right, I just got to validate. Yeah, like I just want to see like where you're at when it comes to this conversation. So that's good. But
who does want that? Again, I would iterate like
don't play Star Citizen. No, right. I don't want those people. Go away. Yeah, right. Exactly. So okay, so let me go a step further then. Are you okay with actually once you put the buy and sell order to put it whatever price that you want? That's where we differ.
Sure.
Right.
I'm fine with being able to set the price.
Okay. Now here's my next point. So here's my third point. Okay. So if you're okay with like taking an item and then setting it at whatever variance that you want, whether it be 1 credit or 10 million, billion, jillion, Googleplex credit, that's cool with you. But when I say that, I think the interesting thing that I think of that I get worried about, when I look at the other side of this argument and say, do I want an NPC led? The thing I worry about most is that I won't be able to have the ability to market it whatever I want because the market will not allow it, because the market itself is being controlled by the AI and the AI is setting the pricing. That's what I get worried about. Then I go, oh shit, because now it's not as fun for me anymore because I'm a trader that likes to work the market. And if I have an item or many,
RuneScape did that.
And I can't set my pricing because the AI is always going to beat me in every single system. I don't even care if it's one system, honestly, because if it's just one system, everybody will go that fucking system because the AI pricing is going to be like so stable.
Right.
At 90-10, I don't think people understand. At
Right,
90-10, you're going to go from system to system to system. It doesn't matter where you're at on the map, and you're going to find the pricing barely different, probably maybe programmed by SIG and the AI to have maybe a 15 to 20% discrepancy on pricing based upon AI technology, like what they want to program into it. Now, if they do that, then as a trader, an entrepreneur, I go, my options just became limited, and my margin on what it is that I can sell just went from like amazing, and I had this big dream and I could do whatever I wanted and be like, oh, this is going to be great, to like, like, oh my God, I got nothing, I got like this to work with, and God only knows, like, because then doesn't it become the same thing as Elite Dangerous going point A to point B if you're literally stuck with buying like the same items? It's basically like, here's your mission, like pick up this item and take it over here because you're going to get 15 to 20% on it. Isn't that what that means, Michael, or am I wrong?
I don't think that necessarily means the same thing. Let me pose a counter argument or a counter question.
Okay.
And that is, what if there were, instead of 1 million players, there were 100 million players?
Right. So like you're flooding it on. Yeah, and you know what?
So,
you bring up a good point. Like this is a very good.
So now you're competing with 100 million people.
Right. So like we increase the amount of people into the game. So now what we're worried about is the actual player style, like the player type.
Well, I mean, my point is that if you're modeling the NPCs to behave like players essentially, then it's really no different than.
But is it? But that's just okay. That's philosophical right there, because like, is it like if it's one person?
That's where I think
Okay.
That's where I think Star Citizen differs from a lot of other games, is that with everything else, you've seen this in everything else, they are trying to model behaviors. They're trying to get the best AI. They're trying to get weather systems, not just I'm going to turn on the rain now or light boxes and all that. They're really trying to model behaviors to be more like actual people. And by having those extra people in there, it's going to feel like a more lived-in universe. And to me, that does increase energy.
Well, and let me say, I agree with you. I actually agree with what you just said.
That's why I like Michael's conversations.
What I want to say about that is, if you were saying we want NPCs to be like people, you want them to react like people, then in my mind, it's like what you're really saying is I want a player-driven economy. To me, the best way to have NPCs act like people is you take the data from the 10% of people, like the real people, and what they're doing, and then you use that to inform what the NPCs are doing. Because we got to remember, economics isn't.
Yeah, but we won't be the 10%. Yeah, but the 10% that have the control of the market is going to be not even substantial enough to make any like foothold.
No. The 10% is all of the players combined, and so you got to remember, like a market. Like a market isn't just a guy who's like, I bought some bread, now I'm selling some bread at my retail store.
Well, it's the entire You're saying to collecting the data within the game. I got what you're saying, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying is, what it needs to be is there's two ideas that are both good, and there's the balance between them. And the ideas are, in my mind, when I say player-led, I don't mean not 90-10 split, because I want the world filled out and everything like that. In my mind, player-led means if you have 100 people, and 10% of those people are all doing mining, then 10% of the NPCs are also all doing mining, because that is what the player base is doing. The other side is to say, well, if 10% of real players do mining, well, then what we're going to do is we're going to offset that with the NPCs and have, well, we need more miners than that. So we're going to have 30% of the 90 mining. And the reason why that is bad, in my opinion, is because you don't have the give and take of an economy. The way things work in a real economy is you go, well, nobody wants to be a garbage collector. Well, that's why you get paid more for doing that. Well, people don't want to do this job because it's dangerous. My character might die. Well, that's why you have to pay that guy more.
And you're talking about realism again. You're talking about like realism, like putting the realism in the game, like making it just as real in real life as it would be in the game.
No, I'm talking about there's this idea of like trying to make it. But what I'm saying is, if you just have it based on what people actually do, then it is real. Like there's no trying. It is just the real.
But isn't in effect, because it is a program and it's running off of what we do, is it really real? I mean, because the variable is us.
Well, that's what makes it real. If the variable is us.
But the variable goes right back to the ratio of 90-10. Like, but what you're
Right, but
saying.
what I'm saying, if you have 10 guys,
Mhm.
and let's say basically what that means is me as a player,
Right.
I control my actions,
Mm-hmm.
but I also control 9 NPCs. So
But
if
you
I
don't
decide to be a
necessarily
miner-
control them, though.
No,
Yeah,
not control them, but I'm saying their overall decision. Like if I decide, like if my gameplay is that, and you look at the economy, if I'm buying mining equipment,
Then there's 9 other NPCs out there reacting off of what you're doing. Are you saying that the AI is in effect looking exactly at what you're doing and mimicking it, like 9?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you literally think that,
No,
like,
I
when you
I
log
think it
in.
should.
Okay, but like
I think
I
it
just
should.
want to see like how deep you're connected to this. So like when you log in, you believe that when you're playing the game, in every trade or every buy or sell that you do, that like 9 other actual bots or NPC or just the data itself attached to it is doing something at the similar time to you.
If it doesn't, then it will not be a player-led economy. Because the reason why that matters is because if you don't do that, then your supply and demand is not based on human interaction at all. It does supply and demand, because if you think of it this way, if the entire player base
Mm-hmm.
all decides they're only going to buy bread ever, they're never buying anything else, which is absurd.
Never, yeah, right. It would never happen, right?
But imagine if every person on the planet just revolted, like we're only eating bread. The
Mhm.
price of all of their foods, they should be like those other economies should just tank. But what I'm saying is what this is doing is like if all people decide we're all gonna just do this, it doesn't matter. It's like, well, it doesn't matter because 9 times the amount of you and imaginary people are just eating the other food. And so what I'm saying is,
you're saying there's a symbiosis between what you do and what they do. Are they doing the same thing that you're doing?
ideally, they will do something very similar to what we're doing. The only exception I would have that should
By like what discrepancy though?
is
But
if
like by
I
what?
as a-
Mm-hmm.
the only thing I think that should affect that otherwise
Mhm.
is that if I as a player
Mm-hmm.
hire someone, like if I'm a miner
Mm-hmm.
and I hire 2 NPCs to be bodyguards, then I think that should be accounted into the data, because then me as a player, I'm already affecting 3 people. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And what I'm getting at is if you have the 90-10 split, but you don't have players' actions weighted higher than NPC or player actions affecting NPC in general, then your supply and demand is not going to be affected realistically, because you can have 0 players doing mining at all and then have every NPC just fill that gap with mining. On the converse side of that, though, there's certain jobs that, what if mining sucks and nobody wants to be a miner? Then you think, well, do you want to
Yeah,
force
good
people to
point.
mine?
Right. So like the NPC force
So
would then
that's
take
the
over.
balance.
Right.
And
right.
in my mind, the way to solve that is not to go, well, if there's a part of the game that's just so boring and that it sucks, like, being a merchant is so, like, useless that we'll just have NPCs handle all that. In my mind, it's like, no, just make me being a merchant better, ideally. You
Right.
don't have it almost seems like the 90-10 split is like a, my fear is that it's going to be used as a buffer. And just
Yeah, like I
well,
think many
if
people think it's a
gameplay's bad, we'll
safety
just give
net.
that to an NPC.
I think many people think it's a safety net to fall on just so that the game doesn't bust. And I think it was designed that way because Chris was worried that when he initially, when he finally releases this and everybody gets involved, he wants to like have control. He just literally wants to have control of the economy so that the game stays unbroken. I think that his mindset is that. Like I literally think that like over time though, like it'll eventually become a different ratio. Like I think it's the same way in which, and I said this in an economic video before, it's the same way in which the Fed regulates the rates.
Let me ask you this: in what way you say it'll become a different ratio? How? What's the mechanism in your mind for that?
Well, if there's going to be a program that's going to say, like in your kind of way of thinking, that there's nine, let's just say 9 AI attached to you for every action that you do, countering, or are they competing with you, or are they doing the same thing as you?
Well, by doing the same thing as you, they, in a sense, could be competing with you anyway.
Right, but like they're going to be buying and selling at certain prices, correct? Are these 9 other things going to be buying and selling as well?
Either
Okay.
that, like they need to.
And
be
what's the
doing that,
pricing
and
they're going to use?
They should be using pricing that is
Reflective of?
the average of what human players are doing. So in other words,
right. So it's taking the collective. So you're saying it's taking the collective buy and sell order, and it's reducing it to like an average kind of price. So it's kind of like either going to be undercutting you if you're going nuts on the price, or like not many people are going to be on the other end of the spectrum. But
like
then
they need to respond to, and the reality is it's got to be done very cleverly, because
it really does, because and that's what I'm worried about.
Straight average, it's got to be like an amalgamation of like average and like the median, because if you don't do that, then you can have I could game that system in 2 seconds. All I got to do is have a bunch of buy orders from your faction, let's say, and say, hey, I just need you to buy a bunch of stuff from me at exorbitant amounts.
Right.
So then NPCs will now pay me more that I sell to. So you don't want to do that.
Right.
You can't have it just straight. Like, what I'm saying is this is where getting NPCs involved at all makes a system able to be gamed. Because you can't do that with a person. If I say, well, Al bought it from me for $1 billion, so you're going to give me $500 million, right? They'd go, no. Like, I'm not giving you $500 million for a sandwich. It's not happening. But with NPCs, even if it's not affected by players at all, it's just a random variation. Today it's $10.
Well, this is why. Okay, but this is why I really like the economy and what they presented initially. I like that they presented a concept where, like, when an item was created at a manufacturing node, which we know is going to be very rare for any human to actually operate, for reasons we were talking about before, what Matt's talking about. Going forward in the game, what's going to end up happening is that those particular nodes are going to produce items, and those items are going to be put on the market. And every item that's put on the market, Matt is under the theory that 9 of the AI are attached to you and are going to come out with pricing that is going to be like an overall average of low and high buy and sell orders. And then it'll like boop, 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 boop. It'll just like auto post on the market, the amounts, the quantities, and like an average pricing. And I think that's where I'm getting at. I think that's what really my when I come to like why I like to play games that have economies, I don't like that. I don't like that because it doesn't feel human. Like, I used to trade on the market, okay? And like, one of the things that I loved about trading was I saw the emotion being printed up and down by human people. Yes, there was some AI involved in it. Quant funds, those things, they're involved with the market just like humans are.
What do you think AI should do in the economy then?
I think AI should be. I think we need to be very careful, because like when it comes down to what I think the AI should do to the market, I get real kind of sketchy, because then I think to myself, like, okay, who's the guy who invented the AI? It's like Terminator. Who invented the fucking Terminator? Like, I get a little worried. Like, I don't think that's something that people think about. Like, I don't think that we should all just agree to the fact that this is going to do exactly what it is that we want to do, because we collectively are doing something and it's taking our average off of something. I think that's not how anything works. I don't think that's how anything works right now with the technology that we have. So like, I think the only thing to counteract it, to answer your question, is that it be human-led, or at least appear to be human-led, so that like we feel as if we have some type of effect on the gameplay. Right. It's kind of like the same thing that you're saying.
Because the only other way to, other than having NPCs emulate what humans do, is to ignore all the NPC data entirely. But where that becomes a problem is, you run into things like other discussions like, well, is food a requirement? Do you have to eat food to survive?
Right.
And do you have to eat food when you're logged off? Because NPCs never log off. So no matter what, if that's the case, like,
this is a pretty good discussion. I'm digging this.
You're gonna have food be in a weird place, because NPCs have to eat 24/7 and humans, other players don't. So you have like this weird portion of society that doesn't need to eat, basically. And so like, if you're a food producer, like, you're going to, in some ways, do better than a weapons producer, because everyone has to buy food, with the exception of the, 10% who don't need to eat. But with weapons, it's like, well, there's plenty of people who don't need that. Like, that's not a huge market. I mean, well, I live in Texas, so a lot of people buy weapons, but in general, like, people don't need to buy weapons. Like, weapons is a huge market here, actually. But
yeah, right. From where you're at, that's a surprising statement, my friend.
I know, what I'm saying is like, well, we don't need to buy any because we already have. So
right.
You know what I mean? It's like if you just are like a grocery store worker guy, it's like you don't need to be strapped. There's going to be so many people. disagree with me, but like, it's not needed. Like, you might say it's a good idea, or it's helpful for this or whatever, or I might need to shoot somebody, so I'm just gonna carry it. But like, if you're a miner guy, you don't need a handgun in your cockpit necessarily.
Right.
Unless the world's in that state, right? Like if
well, true, right, and that's what
crazy,
that's right, and then we get back into like the immersion, the reality of it. And I don't think those experiences can be really simulated by AI, even if they're taking like a general average of what we do and saying it, farting it out there.
I agree.
I don't think it can give me those experiences. That's, I think, another thing, Michael. What I'm talking about is like, I get worried that like if we do go under an NPC AI, which we are. I mean, that's the way it's starting. But again, like I said, I think that ratio is going to be reduced over time as more and more people like myself who like to play the game with trading. I think over time you'll see the ratio kind of like escalate a little bit, because I really think that people are very smart when it comes to this game. Like, I think a lot of the Star Citizens that play this game are of a higher kind of like IQ. I sound like a little extreme, but I believe that.
Yeah, and I think that to kind of second what you're saying is kind of also what I think, which is that even with a 1 to 10 ratio of NPCs or players to NPCs, I don't think that the NPCs will have as much impact on a 1-per-1 basis as a PC.
Gotcha.
Just because people are smarter.
Right.
Than
Right.
And you'll be able to outthink them and outperform them. Just like, I mean, think of it in terms of like going into Arena Commander. How many Vandal can you take out? More than 10 if you make it all the way through. Right. It's way more than 10. So I kind of see it as that sort of thing where they're not all going to be driven. To me, a PC economy is sort of, if you play any tabletop games, it's sort of the adventurer
right. It gears itself towards more.
Right.
It makes sense. It makes sense that they're doing it this way initially. It really does. Like, when it comes to game design, it makes complete sense that they're doing this way. Like, I actually say that on prior videos. I understand why it's coming out this way, and a lot of people think that when I talk about this, I'm being like very, and I'm not, only because I understand how they have to initially release this game in order for this game to be successful. Period. Because like.
I was gonna say, I want to say is that DG and I have talked about doing a tabletop game, and like, off that statement, if we end up doing it and I run that tabletop game,
I love that, Michael.
I want you to see, because
that'd be
I
fun
played
shit.
Ones where like, what's beautiful about that is that you can choose it to be whatever you want, and that's kind of where we're at right now because the game's in development, and so like I've played tabletops where, like the idea like that you're playing one character, it's like you're not playing one character, you are leading a campaign that's like an army against another guy who also has an army. So like the economy actually came into play because a +1 on a sword or whatever is fine for you as a character, but that means nothing in the scheme of things. But a +1 on your economy affects your whole army, you know what I mean? And so like the entire and what I'm saying is like, I know Al wants to be like in that status as well. Like he wants to be like Kingmaker guy, right? He wants to be
like Empire Builder. Like that's my favorite thing to do. It's like
he's not worried about +2 on a gun. He's worried about +2% on the field.
right. Exactly. No, exactly. Like I play ruthlessly.
That's what he's looking at. That's the way he wants to play.
Yeah. I like that style of play.
Well, but he builds a community.
Right. Like, look what I do. Right.
And he wants to be able to leverage his group power in a very corporate style like that, and we've talked about that. Right. But what I'm saying is that is
plug for Plexus, by the way.
That's bad, but that's actually good if you want to be. If in your mind you're like, I want to be a space spy, right? 007. Well, who are you going to spy on? You got to spy on DG. Like, you need somebody to spy on. Right. If you're like, I want to be an assassin, right? I'm a lone wolf assassin. Well, who's going to pay you the money to be that is going to be someone like DG who's like, I need this one guy dead because he's costing me 4%, and that's unacceptable. And so he's like, I'll pay you 3%,
and that's okay. And this is the argument to like the way I like to play games is like, you're fucking nuts. Like, there's not a lot of you out there. There's like maybe like 2 or 3% of people that like to play this game.
That one guy who wants to be the lone wolf
But that's what makes the fucking economies. Like, that's what I'm saying. That it's market makers. They're the market makers. They're the ones that set the pricing. And there's a lot of people out there like me that like to do that, to take items and exploit them, you know, for maximum profit. And that's how we like to play the game. It sounds, me saying it makes me feel sick. but I like to play the game that way, and you know what? That's but I like to actually make something from nothing. My favorite thing to do about anything, and why I love Star Citizen so much, because it's like this playground, is that I feel like if there's anything in the game that's going to limit me on what I can do, it's like any game, really. It's, you know, like reality, you know, like open our eyes and wipe the crust out of our eyes. Is like, that's kind of how games are, because like it's trying to give us, it's trying to sell itself to the most amount of people. You know, I get that, because if you're like a niche market, you're going to lose. But like, I think it needs to endorse people like me, because like people like me that like to play this game are the reasons why there are wars, are the reasons why there are things that happen, are the reason why you're doing what you're doing. It gives you the adventure. It gives you the quest. I am the fucking quest master. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it gives you the something to do. And the fear, I think, on the other end is that there's not going to be either enough of people that want to play this way to actually balance it, or they're just saying, we don't want these people. Like,
the thing is, you don't need a lot of people who want to play that way. If
no, you
like,
don't.
Hey, I just want to be a miner, and I want to mine.
Well, you saw it in Eve. If you look at Eve,
they can work for you. Yeah.
There was only like 10 big powers in the Alliance on the Eve map from 2006 to 2010 when I played that game, and then I had to cut the string because I was like, I cannot keep playing this. It's going to take over my entire life. I remember it being just the map. There's over 5,000 systems in Eve, and I remember there always being like 3, 4, 5, 6 big powers that just you couldn't fucking do anything against.
Well, that's how our world is,
you know,
too.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's what I mean. Like when I log in the game, I want there to kind of be like a gold rush thing, and there's not. And the reason why there's not also is because the storyline, and that's another video I want to get into, is about the power of the citizenry. Like, what is the power that we have? And I think that's a really good video topic, because like, what is it that we'll be able to do in the game that's going to make us feel like, you know, maybe some of us want to be a little bit, you know, not bigger than the story. You know, we don't want to like over eclipse the Van Duel, for God's sake. I don't think we'd want. Maybe I actually would. I would. Like, I actually would. Like, I mean, like, let me just. I would like to actually control all the aliens and make them do anything that I want to do.
Well,
but
for me,
go ahead.
For me, it's a lot about gameplay. You know, I don't want to, be conquering this whole system, and then the NPCs show up with the other item. It's like, what was the point of conquering that system? I don't want the 90-10 split to ruin the gameplay. I think that would be my big.
That's good. What's up, Max? Welcome to the stream, by the way. It's nice to hear your voice, man. Gamer Max is a content creator. You guys can check him out. He's got his own YouTube channel. Super nice dude. But go ahead. Yeah, that's a good point. What would you say to that, Mike?
Not wanting the NPCs to ruin.
Well, it's kind of like if they've got a whole bunch of pirates that are conquering the system and not allowing any trade goods come through, and then there's not enough trade goods here, we need to keep the game going, so now a whole bunch of NPCs show up with that trade good. It makes the pirates feel like, why do we even bother to do that?
I think the whole approach of the discussion is a bit off at the moment. Because the topic in general is economy and not only market trading.
I would disagree, though. Is this Grom?
Groth, yeah.
Groth. Sorry, Groth. I would disagree only because, like, I think I would disagree only because I think that, like, that market activity is part of the economy. I think that's essential to an economy. I mean, that's how it works in the real world.
What he's saying is that it's part, but he's saying that there's more to it. Is that what you're getting at, Groth?
No, I'm saying, the economy is, we're talking about World of Warcraft and other games that are not really applying. There are people trading, and the trading is big.
Okay,
so trading of goods, but both the producer and the consumer is a player. So that's, and in most real economy games, not something like that. Something like the tycoon games, an Eve, and the X series, which has some. I mean, it's a single player game, and it's more than 90%, but it has like one of those flowing economies and other games. The thing is, CRG, what we do, they're always controlling production of certain goods, the goods that we can't. We could do farming, we could do ore production with mining, but many of those specialized goods will be controlled by them, how many are produced. So we will influence maybe by some of our purchases what's more produced and what's less, but many of the missions, and it's not only that we trade what we want, but many is also mission based. So it's not only that we buy something and sell something. It's there are also cargo missions where we just are the usual delivery driver.
Yes, but like going with what you're saying there is one of the things I think about initially is going back to, like, you're saying, what about the people? Are you saying this then? You're saying, like, what about the people who are actually shipping from point A to point B? Is that
the thing is, we I think Chris always wanted that we are not some tycoons. We are people in the verse, and the story is made by CRG. It's not like Eve where corporations fight each other. We have a lore that's already being
established, like with the gameplay, right.
It's not like the wars,
right. The style of gameplay, no, I understand what you're saying. Like, you're talking about the style of gameplay that there is within the game and the way that the designers have made it and the way that we're to play the game.
Well, hold up,
is what he's saying. He's saying that's exactly how the game is set. Like right now, actually.
That's what he's saying,
but that's how the game is right now.
Well, right. What I would disagree is, like, they have in the lore, they have I think it's not the Crusader system. It's one of the systems. It's like this one is, somewhat lawless, and it's controlled by corporations and things like that. We have the idea of, like, corporations fighting each other in the lore already. It's not like that's not a part of the thing. But on the note of, like, you're saying, like, we're talking at a higher level, and I agree. Like, you're saying, like, what you're talking about has nothing to do with the little guy, but I would disagree because you mentioned, like, shipping, so we'll use that as an example. If you're a guy who's just shipping from point A to point B, if there's a place that you have to go through, like, that you will probably die. Like, for instance, you've got to go through the Sol system that Gamer Max and his crew has taken over, right? You're like, well, there's pirates. If you're the guy going on that delivery, like, there's risk involved. So you'd be like, well, I better get paid more to deliver this stuff, which increases the price of that good, and et cetera, et cetera. But if you're an NPC, you're like, yeah, I'll go die, whatever, no problem.
The thing is, the thing is, nobody takes over the Sol system. CRG doesn't want that. It's not a free game.
But
there's a stable
Sol system,
government with
because that's where Earth is. But on the outlying systems, they're absolutely.
So no, this is interesting though, because Groth is coming from. Wait. This is interesting because Groth is coming from the aspect of. Groth is coming from the angle of this, and it's a voice, I see on a lot of my comments on my videos, on my Star System videos. Groth is coming to us with this point. I don't think he's aware of the fact that we're just, like, voicing the fact that we're having a debate of, like, styles of gameplay that we would like to see within the game. Groth isn't there with us. Groth is kind of like, hey guys, this is the fucking way the game's gonna be. And
no, I'm not that guy. I just want to establish. I mean, from what we heard already and what we heard in the law, establish some basics. But because we were already coming from those things where we can control everything, production, consumption, and everything between. But there will be just end consumers that are not even simulated. It's just some background program that simulates end consumers,
right.
And that are not those 90% NPCs. There's 90% NPCs are some pirates, are some traders and haulers and explorers that are driving around.
Right. You're talking about the spawning of the NPCs in the game. He's talking about actually the spawning of the game.
The vision of the game overall. Here's how I interpret the vision, because this is what got me into it. They produced a video, and it's like, be what you want to be. You can be anything.
Yes. Yeah. Right. I remember.
And the reason why we're talking about this is because what DG wants to be is a community corporate leader person. And my only thing about, like, you said, well, no one's going to take over the Sol system. You're right, and that should be something that's basic.
Right, and I agree with that. Like, we shouldn't overtake the confines of the game itself. We shouldn't be able to be more powerful than. Right.
Let's replace soul, like, and not that it's impossible because the game's just like invisible wall, you can't do it. It's just you should get there and you'd be like, we're gonna take over this thing, and then a freaking bingo carrier rolls up and is like, no, you're not. Boom, you're dead. Because that's what would happen in real life. That'd be like if you're like, we're gonna take over the Pentagon.
Right. But we want to have the ability to actually work the market. We want the ability to try. Even though we know we're going to get blown up by the UEE if we get too big.
Though, you can't control the soul system, but
that's what pirating is. That's what freelance. You know what? This is the thing that kills me. Chris himself, he was asked, like, what role would you play in the game? And he was like, I would like to kind of be like a pirate, a freelancer. Like, Chris himself said he would like to be a pirate in the game. Like, he likes to play the game that way.
Well, piracy on individuals is different than, like...
Well, and we're just talking about the action of piracy. But, like, it's a big swath of gameplay. It's a big swath of gameplay. It's just not the, like, in the ship blowing up other ships. Mm-hmm.
Well,
who's this?
Let me finish my point. Yes.
Yeah. Matt.
Well, because I
love it.
Soul system. I don't want to shut people out, but like the idea of the whole point of an explorer is these outer planets that aren't explored yet.
Right.
You're supposed to be able to own those and take those over. Like they're not supposed to be like the soul system, just held in a vice, impossible to get, unless a player makes that happen.
Right.
And so what I'm saying, if I'm an explorer. And it's like, hey, I found a new planet. And it's like, oh, cool, that's mine now. It belongs to the Earth Empire of Earth, and you can't have it anymore. And you can't take it back, and you can't fight for it. And you can't, take all of its resources or whatever. Like, that replace Soul System with some outer planet that a player found and builds, and they have their own thing. Imp, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I've tried for a while. One thing I'm really wondering is...
This is why. This is why I love reading Matt's comments, because Matt's comments. That's why I call him Matt Spear, because he goes. I love reading his comments. Go ahead, Imp. Is this Imp?
Yeah, it's Imp.
Hey, Imp. Welcome to the stream. Go ahead.
I've seen for a while ago. I think it was Chris Roberts or the four people in charge. They talked about that if you get disconnected, right, your character remains in game for a while, right? So you can't combat log. My question is, will an NPC take over so you're not just dead in the water, or a capital ship is dead in the water if the pilot dies, or goes AFK, or disconnects?
If it's a cap ship, it'll go to your first officer and take over the ship.
Yeah, but what if the whole bridge basically crashes for some reason? Maybe they're in the same household and their connection dies. What will happen then? Can next in command go over and ask him to get out of the chair, or will the NPCs
I think the NPCs will take over.
Yeah, will they go into survival mode? Sort of like you remember in Left 4 Dead, when they AFK too long or you lost connection, an NPC will take over and keep your character safe, basically.
I heard them talk about this. They said that the NPCs will take over your ship and fly it to the safest port and log it out.
Yeah.
Well, what if you're in combat while this is happening?
If you're in combat, you'll probably it's just a sad reality, but this is true for every game, no matter what. If you disconnect in the middle of combat, it happens to me in League, it happens to me in other games.
Tell me about it. I hate when he DCs in League.
You're probably gonna lose. There's nothing, there's no remedy for that. Like if there's a missile flying at you and you're about to do a barrel roll, right? And you're gonna dodge it, and you DC, you just got hit by a missile and you're dead. Like there's nothing to remedy that.
What I'm saying is, if they basically put in a survival system, so let's say you're on a combat firefight, right? Your character could basically just jump for cover and only do defensive fire, and if he's asked to retreat by his comrades, he will retreat with them. Or if it's in space, he will try to seek to safety, but if he's in a dogfight, he'll try and survive, and if he makes the fight, then he'll run away.
I agree with there's probably will be a system for that, but it's going to be an NPC and a player's going to kill them. Like that's the reality of it. Like I'm sure they're going to make.
But does it even matter at this point? Like if you've bought a ship and you have lifetime insurance, does that even fucking matter though? Because if your ship blew up, wouldn't it be just like replaced over and over and over again?
Well, you
Yeah.
lose all your
It's all the items if it's a big capital ship.
Oh shit! I did not know that. Okay, interesting. Well, that's no good.
I see what you're saying there, but okay, let's say instead that you're
Not only
flying
that, but-
somewhere, right? And instead you're carrying cargo.
Yes,
Like
yes,
you said,
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
economy, right?
Right.
Lose
So
the
you do lose the
is
cargo.
just-
I did like
it's
that.
Just sitting there.
Yeah, no, I did like that. Well, no, I like the fact that that happens because it's more reflective of a true market. Like if I'm flying, my ship gets blown up by pirates or anybody, or it could be good guys. You never know. I mean, like anything can happen. That's why I love Star Citizen. It's like those items instantly just basically get float out there as salvage. Correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Because every
They're not
item that's
destroyed.
made in the
Some will be
game,
destroyed.
this goes back to like what I was talking about initially. Every item in the game that is made is actually there and physically tangible, correct? Like you can't alter unless you destroy it or like that. Those items are there and reflective of the number that will be posted as the total. Well, that's not true because it's just going to show the amount that was made and manufactured. But like what exists in Star Citizen will always exist in Star Citizen, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I'm assuming if your ship explodes, like you're gonna lose some.
But
stuff
I'm
like
talking
that.
down to the items because I remember watching Grabby Hands. I remember watching when they were talking about Multi Crew.
I'm
and-
saying some of the items can be destroyed if they're literally destroyed.
But
Well,
yes,
like,
you
other
can
than
come
that,
back
they're
and
not.
salvage it. You are correct.
Yeah, correct. You can
Yes.
come back and
But
salvage the items.
The other thing that they have said though is that you can items and cargo separately. So if you're going on a run and you're like, well, kind of a sketchy area, I'll go ahead and insure my cargo. I'll pay a little bit of money
Yes.
so that if I do get blown up,
Right.
that I get my ship back and I get my cargo back and I can.
But
I-
they've also said some areas insurance won't apply and some things won't be able to be insured.
I think
Like,
though
if
that the
you've got-
dynamic needs to be deeper though, don't you, Matt? Like, don't you think the dynamic needs to be a little bit deeper than just worrying
Well,
about like
that part
shipping of
is-
the cargo, or is that it?
Right, well, the thing is that is what's, but like it is going to be deeper, just even with that, because if you think about it, like if you're running a shop on the other end, I'm hoping player shops, but let's say it's not. If it's the NPC shop, if there's a shipment that's supposed to go to that shop, right? You've got a classy freighter like heading there, and it gets delayed or stopped. Then on the other end, there should be a guy like, so I'm here to pick up the milk, and they're like, sorry, there's no milk. It didn't come from the other galaxy
Right.
or whatever, right? So, or from the other planets. So, like, that's the whole point. That's why piracy can have an effect, and that's
Right.
why
But,
they've
like,
even
with-
talked
with-
about,
but-
like, individual towns will start to look more and more run down because pirates are like,
Right.
literally
Be
stopping
reflective
goods
upon
from getting
right because of the goods that are there and right
And
exactly.
in that term, like
Population.
that part will be very like that has to be. You can't have like.
Well,
that's
I
gonna
think
be
that's a
an
pretty cool
NPC
concept. I
reaction.
think that's pretty cool what they're doing. But what about Groth? Like when he's saying like, listen, shops aren't going to be in the game. Like, what do you say about that? Like, do you say like, do you think it's important for us to have a voice so that
Well,
like in
here's
the
what I
stage
would
that we're
say.
at, the design stage that we're at, I think it's
Well,
important for
that's
people to
it.
talk about what it is that we like.
So,
I-
okay.
I think one of
yeah.
I think one of my disappointing factors is I like to explore and I like to make my own decisions and go where I want.
Right.
And the idea that it's so controlled by NPCs, I have to get a quest from an NPC. What if I don't want to get a quest from an NPC?
Yeah, exactly,
What if
Max.
I want
Exactly.
to go do what I want to
Exactly,
do. That drives
and
me
make your
crazy.
own quest and do your own thing and like
Exactly.
as a trader, that's exactly what we want. Like I think that's what Sig and Chris are missing. I think I think they know it's there. I think they know it exists. I think they know the voice is there. The game is going to be designed, and I think as we go forward, I personally believe this, that when we go forward, they're going to have a concept of like making this game unbreakable, and then as people enter it and the game is finalized, they're going to see a lot of people like us that really want to create the experiences, that really want to be the market makers, that really don't want to have like confining variances based upon AI averages and reflections of what it is that we do. They're going to cater to us, like eventually, because like I think that's what makes the game interesting. But if it isn't, then I feel sad. I feel sad that that's the Star Citizen that it is, and I kind of like I hope that's not always going to be the case. Personally, myself, do you agree with that, Max? Is that kind of how you feel?
Yes.
Yeah, there's that voice. That's the voice I'm talking about, and Max agrees with me. It's like he knows what I'm talking about. He sees what I'm seeing. He's seeing the way of the style that we like to play the games. But Groth is coming back, and Groth is saying. That's not the way that it is, and I'm not trying to point out Groth or be aggressive or anything. Groth, I'm just kind of like showing the difference and what it is that I'm trying to get across is that there needs to be a voice that's actually out there that Sig can listen to, and say, okay, well, maybe we need to think about things a little differently. Maybe we need to put like a different like style of gameplays or designs based on, and we have polls, like we've done polls here on the channel. Our interestingly enough, I think our survival poll got to 1,000 people, which is cool. So 1,000 people voted on that. And the economy video, currently we have a vote, and I wish I could show it, but like wonderful streaming technical difficulties. Let me just get to the point. Human-led economy versus NPC economy, and it's a vote over 500 people. And some people would say, well, that's not enough. And Michael does that too to me. Like, that's not enough people to be reflective of a true sociological analysis of the situation. I agree completely. You're right. But I do want to get like a guide, a thermometer, like a temperature from my own audience. And it's cool that you guys do that and get involved in that. So like, interestingly enough, right now, I think the poll is 53%. Is so close. It is just so crazy close. And I think it's reflective, even if like, and again, like this is, you know, people are going to burn me at the stake for saying this, but like, I personally think that the percentage itself over 500 people is, I call me crazy, but like, maybe it's just like my ego or some shit. But I think it's kind of reflective of like, kind of like the overall atmosphere of what you're going to find as that number expands. I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong in the past, but 53% are in for human led economies, and the remaining 47% are NPC.
Well,
NPC really.
I'm gonna go even more ego than you just went, but I would say like I think there's a lot of people who they'll argue tooth and nail and be like, no human economy has to be NPC led. But I don't think they realize what exactly
it entails.
I'm not including present company like that. I know.
No, I mean they're making really valid statements. Like I love it. I love it. It's very civil here.
But like in my mind, like for instance, like there's a very good point made. He's like, well, I'm not going to be a corporation, and the vast majority of players aren't going to be a corporate leader, and like that's not the point of the game, and blah blah blah. And that's correct. But like I think the vast majority of players aren't going to be racers either. Like they're not going to be like, I'm a racer and that's all I do.
Right.
But the point is, like, it's supposed to be
whatever it is that you want to do.
The thing is, somebody else being a racer and racer being fully fledged part of the gameplay and fully functional and working does not make me not be able to be a pirate. And the same thing is if you have a guy who's like corporate leader, Mr. Merchant Man, and he spends all this time just talking, he doesn't ever leave a post, basically. Like he's just directing people to do something.
I've done that in games. It's scary. I know. I literally sat in the same station in Eve for like years, just talking to people like this and telling them what, you know, like I had a crew of like over 1,000 people.
We need to be at 5, get it 10.
Yeah, like
it's like your whole life.
Do it.
The business world. But what I'm saying is somebody doing that and like basically creating missions, does it make your gameplay less? It makes it more.
Right.
Certainly, like
I agree.
Like Gamer was saying, if the game is done right, not only do you not need an NPC to give you a quest, you don't need a player to give you a quest. You can make your own quest. But ideally, I would like it to be where I can go and get a quest from a player.
Okay.
Because to me, that's interesting.
All right. I'm going to put... Okay, hold on. I got... Okay, so we're going to talk about the players next. I'm going to put Be Right Back Jesus on. Hold on one moment. We'll get right back with you. I'm going to put Be Right Back Jesus on. That's a little interlude here. I'm going to get something to drink. I'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. And then when we come back, what I want to discuss is I want to talk to each member here that has made it. Thank you for being on voice, everybody here. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to have you guys here. I will talk to every one of you, and I want you guys to tell me. This is like in school when they like called you up in class. You're like, shit. Like, I don't want to do this. No. But like, I'm really curious. You don't have to talk, or if you don't want, that's great. But I'll go through the list, and I would like to actually find out what it is, like kind of like your age range, and what it is that you want to be in the game when it comes to like just gameplay style. And we'll talk about each person when we come back. Thanks for joining us here on DaGaimez. Invite your friends, and we will be back 5 minutes or so. Give me a little break, guys. I'll be right back.
A lot of good points were made, by the way. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.